Thank you, Alicia. Get my screen ready to share. Okay. Well, thank you all for agreeing to participate in this panel. I was prepared just to do the background for this entire conference, but I'm glad to fill in for our good friend Mollie, who developed this presentation. And I think that it's going to be really engaging and really informative to people and really allow people to really think about what are some of the barriers that people with disabilities face in regards to evacuating. So let me see if I can work my screen here. Okay, so now we're going to meet the panelists. Have some slides, but I'm going to allow the panelists, whenever they see their gorgeous faces on the screen, to say a little bit more about themselves. And just before we move on, I am a white female in my 40s with long dark hair with a gray polo shirt and with a fireplace in the background, which is completely unnecessary in South Louisiana. So Mollie, who we talked about and really wish that she was here. I am going to be taking her place, but this is her. I'm not probably as cute and fun as Mollie, but I will try. But really appreciate Mollie's leadership in our state, since she has become the disability integration specialist for FEMA in Louisiana a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and really just appreciate her engagement with us here. And our first panelist is Liz Shapaton. Liz, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm with Team Gleason in New Orleans. Honestly, my education has literally nothing to do with my job. So I always feel strange when people ask for those kind of credentials. So I work for families living with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. My friend Steve Gleason started our foundation, a former Saints player. And I am pretty much in the community every day, pretty much in my car all the time, honestly. So I'll do insurance navigation, resource coordination, trying to look for resources for families living with this disease.
Thank you, Liz. Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica Michaud. I am a white female in my 30s, and I have on a blue and white striped shirt. I'm sitting in a chair with a white door behind me. I am one of the founders of Trach Mamas of Louisiana. I do have a bachelor's degree in social work, and I'm currently a member of MDAC, Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition, and the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs. I am a wife and a mother. We live in Livingston Parish. I have 4 children, 2 of which have different medical complexities and disabilities. We got started in disaster relief probably 2016, and we've been engaged on the state, national, and a little bit of international levels.
Thanks, Jessica. Next, Karen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Scallon. I'm not going to say my age range because I'm like out aging everybody, so y'all can guess. But I am a Caucasian woman with kind of wavy brown hair, shoulder length. I have on an orange shirt trimmed in black, and behind me is a screen that has kind of a banner for my agency, Special Needs and Parent Support Services, with my phone number 504-300-5117. I am actually, this is my agency. I'm the owner, the only person that anyone ever encounters when you call my agency. I do Medicaid advocacy, but I've been doing a lot of work around emergency preparedness ever since I was president of the Down Syndrome Association of Greater New Orleans when Katrina hit. That's been kind of something that's been near and dear to my heart, and I, try to help and help families navigate those complex things when they have to plan. I'm also a member of a number of different stakeholder groups on the Governor's Advisory Council on Disability Affairs and a board member for Jessica's organization, Trach Mamas of Louisiana.
Thanks, Karen. So we're going to move on. Mollie had prepared several questions that I'm going to ask each of you to answer. I'll try to change up the order, but if you really want to be the first one to go, just let me know, jump in. We'll make this as fun and engaging as possible on a very serious topic. So the first question is, there are a lot of considerations that go into evacuating, regardless of disability status. So elaborate on the conditions that go into not just evacuation, but disaster preparedness as a whole in terms of disability. And let's start out. Liz, you're the face I see on my screen. You want to go
No
first?
problem. First of all, I forgot the description stuff. I apologize. I'm a white woman in my 50s. I'm wearing a black t-shirt in front of a curtain. Some of the biggest problems that we have, and I think that a lot of these problems are common, I feel like, to everybody in a hurricane zone specifically. Where do you go? When do you go? Because it's very difficult to make that determination early, considering how much things can move around. For people in my community specifically, and I think despite the fact that obviously the challenges are just as unique as the disabilities and the individuals that are living with those disabilities, I think that if on a general term, you could almost plan for somebody with ALS, you've pretty much encompassed a very wide range of catastrophic disabilities, and with any luck, taking care of a lot of other people, as well. So one of the biggest problems, of course, is people in my community, they're living off of usually one income, which would be a disability benefit, the Social Security disability benefit, since the other people in the home, statistically, are going to end up having to leave their jobs to take care of their person. So evacuating and putting that money out before, not knowing if you will be reimbursed by FEMA or how long that would take, not everybody can do that. Okay, so it's a big issue. And in addition to that, where do you go? By the time we know where it's coming and possibly get the list of hotels that we could be reimbursed for, people are traveling 2-3 states out, right? The ADA rooms are not kept for people with disabilities. In addition, not everybody has transportation. And I think that would be, if we started, where do you go? How do you get there? And how to pay for it all. How do you get there is a huge problem. We have zero accessibility transportation available, short of calling ahead to schedule a ride with a Medicaid provider. But other than that, we have no taxis, no Ubers, no Lyfts, it's very difficult to rent a van in the New Orleans area anyway, with that can handle our type of wheelchair. We traditionally use these Group 3 complex rehab chairs that weigh on average 400 pounds. So we can't go in a regular car. And these chairs are not just a mobility issue for our community, but really a medical device in terms of positioning, holding our equipment, being able to shift your weight around and try to get a little bit of comfortable. And so transport chairs really are not helpful to us. We can't leave our chairs behind. And so that's a problem. We have a tremendous number of people, obviously, in the community across the board that are power reliant on any sort of device that needs the power. Again, you aren't able to purchase a generator and get it reimbursed until the Stafford Act is in effect, but there are no generators to purchase once that happens, you know? And again, the price of gas, to get the gas, not only is gas scarce, but it's expensive. And this is a very expensive, just to evacuate, I would think for somebody in the best case scenario, you have to mentally realize what your budget is going to be putting out. And so for a family living this close to the line and struggling anyway, it's a problem. Right now, I am still looking for, and I feel so terrible bringing a bunch of problems in because you guys have been so good about handing out resources. But I mean, I'm still looking for groups where I can get ramps to get people out of their houses for regular days, you know? I'm not sure what's going to happen come this emergency. I understand those of us who are on the waiver, we can ask for the home modifications, but that is quite a process and takes quite a bit of time. So it's not going to happen in time for hurricanes this year for us. And so now I'm looking for striker chairs. How am I going to get people even down the stairs for a fire? Forget about a hurricane, anything. And this is an ongoing problem. So I think that I wish I could offer solutions. I mean, what we do specifically within our community is we try for the people who don't have vehicles, we try to get them to make a decision early on where they're going to go when they don't have their own cars to get somewhere. Even we're looking at ways to raise money to get a hotel room on a higher floor here in New Orleans. So you're not so far gone that we can help get equipment, et cetera, there before. But it's a scary situation and recovery. I'm not even, we could do a whole different thing on the recovery problems, but just in preparation for this, it's a tremendous challenge to people who are living with such a rapidly progressive and degenerative disease.
Thank you, Liz. Karen, would you like to?
Yeah, I was looking at this question from a little bit different perspective. Just looking at disaster preparedness overall in terms of what do individuals and families of people with disabilities need to do. One of the things that I try to emphasize with my families is this is not just about hurricanes. It's about being prepared for tornado, flood, fire, chemical explosion or emergency. You may have to evacuate very quickly for those things, and their plans really need to have a 72-hour go bag or just something that they call a go bag with basics and information in it, maybe some change of clothes. The other thing is too, if that kind of goes along with that, if there's a child with a disability, if they're in school, what is the school doing as far as making sure that medications are with the child? Because we have so many lockdowns now for even just for practice, but also for tornadoes. We're in Tornado Alley now for active shooter events and active shooter drills. You know, if the child's medication is not with them and they have diabetes or they need an EpiPen or something like that, that's extremely problematic. So that all really needs to be in sort of an all-encompassing disaster plan. So my message is always not, you know, oh, I have a plan and that's it. It's revisit that plan every year, add to it, make changes, ask questions, and make sure you have multiple resources and things that, you know, plans that you have in place in case something doesn't work.
Thanks, Karen. Jessica, would you like to add anything to this question?
Hi, this is Jessica. Poverty really affects all of our communities. It's We live in one of the poorest states. And so I sat at a meeting one time and someone said, well, everyone who lives in the state, every household should have $1,000 to evacuate. And I about fell out of my chair because I said, there's no way people can do this. There's no way people in the disability community specifically can do this, because a lot of families are living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of families can't just abandon supplies and things like that. So planning ahead as much as you can. And how many supplies? What kind of supplies are you taking? Where are you going to store them? Some people don't have a lot of room. So where would you put them in the meantime that's easily accessible? Medications, things like that. How quickly can you get them? And what equipment would you leave behind? What equipment is vital to bring? And all the accessories, surge protectors, things like that. Our community, the trade community, really relies heavily on powered equipment, and hotels, shelters, things of that nature. They don't have enough outlets. They don't have enough to power up all of our supplies and equipment. So some of those are to be taken into consideration.
Thank you, Jessica. Our next question, Karen, I'll let you go first. It says, one of the challenges of evacuating is locating a place to stay. Hotels have limited ADA compliant hotel rooms, and navigating a shelter can be difficult with a disability. Can you share about experiences in which a shelter or hotel was ADA compliant but not functional that should be considered in shelter setup and design? And an example she gave was motion sensor time light shut off in bathrooms when changing an ostomy appliance.
Oh, no.
Yeah, actually, well, one of the things Jessica just said about the number of outlets, what's available to you in any shelter or hotel room, obviously is very important. So just, re-emphasizing that. But I would also add, there was a situation that came up during Katrina. There was a young lady about in her teens who did not have her wheelchair. So she was on the cot in the large general population shelter, but she was unable to move on her own. And she had to have diaper changes, and there was no provision for providing her any privacy. There was no screen or anything they could even do. It was very difficult. And that story really stuck with me after Katrina. And then I would say the other thing is, I have a son who has autism, and the sensory overload in any shelter presents some tremendous challenges. I don't even think I would be able to take him to a large scale shelter because it's just absolutely too overwhelming for him. The lights, the sounds, the noise, the number of faces, it just would be way too much. I know during one of the hurricanes, and Jessica, you might remember which one this was, but through my agency, I had a volunteer who set up a sensory area in the shelter in Baton Rouge. I think it was for the 2016 flood.
Yes, it was.
That was, yeah, that helped for a lot of people I know in that shelter, but it wasn't completely separate from the noise and that kind of din of the big, large room with all these voices echoing around. I don't think it was a complete, sound proof area, but it helped. And even with headphones, like I just don't know that he would be somebody who could navigate that large scale shelter. So I think that's one of the challenges too.
Thank you, Karen. Liz, do you want to respond?
I was just gonna, I know, and Bambi, that I've pushed this a lot. I just want everybody to know about these power stations that I've been turned on to, because they have been phenomenal, especially for the extra power even when people are, I try to get them to even have them in their car whenever possible, but you can get these power stations that are like basically for camping or whatever. You can add on to them. They can have solar panels if you choose to. We recently had that Amazon Prime Day and we put it on our wish list. And we got so many, and I'm so excited to pass these off to families, especially families living in places where they cannot put a gas generator at all, you know, in the townhomes, or if they're too close. And those have been a real, not a solution to everything, I'm not going to lie, but I mean, after Ida, I did go around charging people's batteries and some wheelchairs to the places I could get to. That was tremendous. Being able to recharge packs for swamp coolers that could be USB for people with, you know, temperature regulation issues. That was tremendous. And it's a great source of emergency power on the go. And I have several. In fact, when I'm working from home and my power goes out, which happens with shocking frequency, I'm able to plug my modem into it and still run the internet and work from home. You know, so I mean, those kind of new things that we found have been really helpful, but obviously not. It's a spit and paste kind of, you know, not a permanent solution, but it's been very helpful. We do not travel anywhere personally, our group, without one, because you never know what's going to happen with the equipment we use. And obviously, we rely on power, you know.
Well, thank you for that response. I would say one bright spot in this is that we have advocates have advocated about these issues and have seen progress. And, you know, at least in our shelters, you know, in our state shelters or our Red Cross shelters, they certainly aren't perfect, but there's been incremental progress and just an awareness. And I think we just need to keep on, you know, vocalizing what's needed and sharing what's needed and get those things implemented in those shelters.
And actually what you just said about not having enough outlets, I'm sorry, who was that who said that? I'm making notes as you do this, because we have go bags, but I don't know that I've ever mentioned 72 hours. But what a great thing to put in there, a power strip surge protector, so you can have more outlet. So no, that's a great, I don't think I've ever put that one in there. Thank you.
Okay. So our next question, Jessica, I'll start with you. Due to additional challenges of evacuations for persons with disabilities, many choose to shelter in place as an alternative. What additional planning goes into preparing to shelter in place?
I think the concerns about equipment and supplies and medication, that comes first to my mind. Are you in an area that typically floods? If so, you may want to consider alternate plans. Are you in an area where power outages happen frequently? That's another thing to consider. Do you have backup power? Do you have enough backup power? So if you have one of the in-house generators, do you have a spare generator just in case? Do you have additional gas? Do you have things like that? Do you have all of the contacts, the emergency contacts? I think it was during the flood of 2016 where emergency EOC went down and people were not able to call 911. So having additional things, towers went down, everything. So having additional plans, do I know my neighbors? Do I know anyone locally that can help me? And just knowing that you can't rely on the power companies and rely on that list that everyone tends to advocate for, because they're not going to cut your power on right away just because you have a disability. We've seen that over and over again.
I'm not
And
even sure what that service is for, actually.
I don't either. I think it's just kind of a feel-good thing at this point. But being careful of situations that lure you into a false sense of security, making sure you have not just enough supplies, but an abundance of supplies to where if you're flooded, our subdivision was flooded and we weren't flooded, but the surrounding areas, and we couldn't get out for probably a good week and a half. And so having that ability to just fend for yourselves, lack of a better phrase.
Well, and I will say for that as well, like what happened after Ida, even your whole house generator, that's not meant to go more than 3 days with little upkeep and maintenance, and do you have your extra filters? Do you have the oil for it? Do you have a backup? Because it will go down if we have to do what we did after Ida. I also think that it's important to really stress there's a limit to how long people with our level of disability need to be in a place with no infrastructure. Okay, because suddenly, unfortunately, in New Orleans, especially, crime is a problem. And so if you have one house on that block with all the light and their CMP, we're a vulnerable population, to say the least. We make sure that people have distilled water to wash their tubes and all of our equipment. The backup power beyond even the generator, yes. Safe handling, if it's just a gas generator, to please the safe handling of it. I understand that these are the most commonly stolen household items during this year, and that's why part of the reason people are putting them too close. But you need to make sure that you're using these things safely. How far is that? Are we going to have gas? If you run out, are you going to be able to go get more gas? Those are the really the big ones, the cleanliness. I do always ask people to, and I'll do it myself when I do home visits, to introduce themselves to the local fire station, because I have never seen a fire station not willing to go above and beyond, and to let your fire station know if you're staying, because they have been excellent about checking in on people, about letting you come in to charge equipment, etc. And as weird as it sounds, if you have a Waffle House in your area, have that conversation with the Waffle House, because they stay open, about using power, and being able to use that as a moment of last resort right there. And for the most part, they're pretty nice about that. But once again, when the whole city shuts down for like it did after Ida, a lot of that's pretty much out the window.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you said that, Liz. This is Jessica.
Yeah.
The medical considerations too. A lot of people
Yeah.
have different medical issues that may arise. Anyone with respiratory issues know that when hurricane season comes and rain comes, it kicks up a lot of stuff in the air, and you may be more prone to respiratory issues. So do you have access to medical facilities just in case?
Yeah.
And I love what you said about the Waffle House. EOC may be down, but Waffle House will not be.
It's crazy, right? And
I'm
I've done
joking
it
about that.
before.
They may.
They've come through for us. So yeah, gotta do what you gotta
Great
do.
suggestions. Karen,
Mhm.
you have something else to add to this?
To kind of emphasize something Jessica touched on. So the 2016 flood, I think what went down mostly was the I think AT&T cell towers were down, but Wi-Fi still worked. So you could be in a situation where you've decided to shelter in place, but you don't have a communication plan to really think ahead. What can I do about this? What a lot of people in that situation did was they made sure they downloaded apps that allowed you to make a call on Wi-Fi. So it basically assigns you a new number. You're still using your phone. It's a free call. And then you're able to call out, and you want to make sure you get one that you can call out to anyone, that they don't have to have the same app. And so a lot of people were able to call out for assistance using those Wi-Fi based apps on their cell phones. The other thing that I always tell my people too is, if you're going to shelter in place, especially when we're talking about a hurricane, and you're sheltering in place because you basically have what amounts to an ICU in your home, for someone that's disabled, you're not going to easily be able to move this person yourself. They're not ambulatory, they're dependent on machinery, etc. That there's always risks afterwards. We know there's risk of flood, there's risk of tornadoes, spin-off tornadoes, any kind of thing like that. You really need to get to know your emergency operations center people and I really, feel strongly about that being a two-way conversation. But anyway, I'm asking my families, especially those like in Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish, where they saw so many problems during Hurricane Ida. Call your EOC, talk to them, tell them why it is you can't leave. Have them, when it's off season, it's not hurricane season, ask them, invite them to the house, some come see your situation. So they can have a picture in their mind of like what's going on and what causes you to have this inability to necessarily get out. And what you might need just in case you do have to, because I did have a lady in the 2016 flood in an area which had never ever flooded before in Denham Springs. Her son was completely dependent, total care, and in a specialized wheelchair and everything. And they really weren't prepared. So the waters rose very quickly. She did not have a go bag. She had never done a go bag before. She didn't have anything for them but the clothes on their back. And they just happened to get out. Water wound up being about 6 feet in her house, but they got out when it was chest high, and somebody put him in a boat. I mean, he was just put in a boat until they could get him to someplace that could transport him. And they laid on shelter cots, in having been in this flood water, which is not good for someone who's got a lot of medical complexities and things like that. So, making sure you've got a plan and another plan and another plan, and you've got these phone numbers in your phone. You can put this app in your phone and connect to people that are going to get you help. Connect to your Medicaid Healthy Louisiana plan, because their case managers are going to be on the ball trying to get people new equipment and medications and get you connected to new dialysis providers, because yours may be flooded out and not able to help you. Having that communication plan in your phone and written down too is really important.
Thank you for that, Karen. And just want to remind y'all, we have about 15 minutes left. And just for all of you who are busily taking notes and trying to figure out how you get this implemented, we will follow up with some resources to help you kind of put in place some of these things that they're all suggesting. And we'll do that through our MDAC, the Emergency Management, Disability and Aging Coalition, which we're all a member of, and you can be too. We'll tell you more about that. Our next question, Liz, I'll start off with you. When it comes to successful planning, often we learn from past success and failures. Can you share a preparedness experience that has been really valuable, and perhaps an experience in which you realized you needed to revise your preparedness and evacuation plan, or that of someone you assist?
Well, again, I mean, our community rarely evacuates because of the cost as well as transportation. Because the equipment, if you don't have the transportation for your chair, which is the most comfortable place to be, then you're not going to leave town without it. So we don't frequently do it. And we try to suggest that if you're going to leave, you make a deadline on when that decision will be made. Because the other big thing is, people often break down on the road in the heat, in this traffic, their cars, their vans will overheat. And that is a serious problem, Lord. So I think one of the biggest successes we had was have access to, you know what? I mean, I wish I could say we learned so much more from our successes, but honestly, we learn more from our failures. So I could tell you a lot of those. One is not having the distilled water on hand, not enough. And when you have as many tubes as we use, you need more than you would think for just 3 days. So we actually try to over prepare with families, because if the power goes out in New Orleans, the likelihood of it coming back on in just 3 days is pretty low. I mean, it's usually about 10 days. So we try to really plan for the crazy to happen. And then I think that the successes that we've had have been trying to get our people those backup emergency power, be it whatever we can get our hands on before. I have a list of suggestions to families that they go through their equipment and they check their batteries and they look at their battery time for each device. And then we want to, what are we going to need to power this more? For medicines that have to be kept cool. If you're not running your refrigerator on the on a generator, if it's not a whole house generator, which really you could run it for an hour, and then shut it and just not open it for a while and you'd be good. So I try to break down those as well. But we've been having a lot of success with the coolers that actually have the clamps and the seal, because they really do keep things, you can keep ice, etc., for a week. So that's been a lot better than some of the other ones that have just turned into water on us. But for us, I would say that the most important thing is the backup power source. And that has been a disaster, as well as really we've found some ways around it. But knowing the power you need and almost doubling how much backup you'd need to expect has been the best. Hotels, see, that's the thing though. I mean, we don't evacuate because you have to go, by the time that order comes in and it can be reimbursed, assuming you have a vehicle, you often have to travel several states away to get a hotel. People will end up in Texas or further up in northern areas, and that's a big problem. We try to get out even just like a curb and threshold ramps for those people who have a car, to put in their car prior, because and I'm not really sure how some of these places are saying that they are ADA compliant, because subtitles alone does not make a room ADA compliant. And so we have Go shower chairs that we try to bring out that have been very helpful, because it is incredibly difficult to deal with any sort of bathroom accidents if you don't have the proper equipment and backup things that you would need. And so I would say that the things that we've learned the most are the backup power, the distilled water, and then trying to leave. I mean, setting your deadline to leave. It becomes too late to leave for a lot of us. And unfortunately for people with our level of disability, that happens a heck of a lot sooner than the state tells us not to. And then we do a community relay, which has been very good with people in the ALS communities who will volunteer to have their information put out there as a check-in spot when we don't all have power or a way to telephone each other. And they'll allow themselves to be like a communication hub for our community, which has been really helpful as well. And then different families as well further along that you have their contact will be able to have backup and the equipment you need when you get there, if it comes to that. And that has been a tremendous help. But unfortunately, it has been mostly through the community. So it's not something that I can say this has been the greatest resource that the state or the government's helped us do that. It just hasn't worked that way. And I think that perhaps because of the speed and the severity, the speed that our disease travels and the severity of it, it's very hard to plan in a timely way that will help the people living with it now. So we do rely primarily on community.
Thank you, Liz. I think those are really good perspective. Karen, you like to add?
Yeah. One of the things that we had to tackle, and I don't know if y'all can even see me because I had to jump off my computer. I lost internet, so now I'm on my cell. But one of the things in our family we had to tackle, both myself, my mother, who is disabled, she's elderly. I evacuate her and my son, is just the whole anxiety around evacuating, especially that year. I want to say it was during COVID, where we just had back-to-back threats. So Jessica actually helped me with this, and it's a big part of my preparation every year now, and that is to
just put a bag out and start packing early. And at June 1st, my mom puts a suitcase. Nobody sits on her sofa. So she kind of puts a suitcase out there and she just starts putting her little things in it. We know we're not going to probably have to leave in June, but by the time she's done, she's ready for when the storms come up. So all she has to really do is zip up her bags and, we come get them in the car. For me, it was really traumatic that year because I also had my husband who's disabled, significantly disabled, and I had to pack for all of us and try to figure it out, what we're going to do if we left. But Jessica helped a lot with that and helping me just kind of figure out ways I could get prepared ahead of time. And then just that year, I think we wound up leaving like all of the suitcases in the living room. They just stayed packed. We didn't unpack them because every week we had like another threat. And I would just say to everybody that's listening, you need to be always revising your plan. It doesn't necessarily mean you can always put money into it, but just double check. Have you checked with the teacher this year and made sure what the school's plans are for your child's medicine? Have you downloaded some more hotels or places that you might be able to go? Or have you downloaded those apps for your plan, your Healthy Louisiana plan, or, those kind of things? Those are the kind of things that when you're in a stressful situation, if you've done that footwork ahead of time, it can make it a whole lot easier, because evacuating, whether you're sheltering in place or you're evacuating to another location, either way, it's extremely stressful. And stress affects how we react to emergencies. So the more we can build in supports for ourselves and our loved ones in advance, I think it can only help make us have a more successful plan.
Thanks, Karen. Jessica, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm gonna try to be super quick. This is Jessica again. Getting a little too honest, our family, my son had been home for probably 3 years, and so we were working with support coordinators through the waiver system. And if you have a waiver, then you have an abundance of paperwork to fill out all the time. And it seems like you're being pulled in different directions to fill out paperwork. So when I got this prior to our first emergency situation, it was the evacuation plans for part of our plan of care. And I just kind of Googled numbers, like, okay, well, they want somewhere in this direction. I'll Google this hotel and give them that. And I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it until our first emergency, and that was 2016, the flood. And then I said, oh my goodness, I really need to put a whole lot more thought into this. I focused so much on my son's medical conditions and his disabilities, but I did not at all focus on what I thought at the time was kind of lagniappe, like the extras. I didn't prepare for emergencies. I prepared for medical emergencies, not hurricanes and tornadoes. So that really kind of brought me down to earth and said, hey, I got to look at this and I have to revise it. And we've had a lot of success with our community engaging in social media, engaging in telling hospitals, hey, if a parent needs me, I'm here. And so those parents become friends, and it's really helpful if you're tight on money and you need to evacuate, maybe you can split the costs of a suite. It's also helpful to know what other people are packing in their go bags, what people are bringing, not bringing. I would have never in a million years thought to bring, my son also had autism, to bring his comfort toys. I would have never thought about that until I saw other parents and other families. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. In case something happened, I was just thinking short term. So that's my personal experience.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, all you guys. All right, I think this is our last question. In order to enhance support to the disability community in making evacuations more accessible, what should emergency managers at the parish level know? So I forgot what order we're going in, so I will let you guys battle it out vocally, whoever speaks first.
This is Jessica again. I think the top thing that comes to mind for me is that there's not just a stereotypical version of people with disabilities. There's not the person who they think about, they may not have a lot of experience in interacting with people with disabilities. So when they think about an individual on a ventilator and oxygen and feeding tubes, what they're thinking about may not necessarily be what it is. Or they may be thinking about autism and the violent outbursts and the meltdowns, but they may not focus on the anxiety. So really focusing on not stereotyping or having that picture in your mind, because every person with a disability is different. So every situation is going to be different.
And this is Karen. I just want to add to that and say that, I think that they really should have some, if they don't already, they may, planning for understanding how many people are going to need transportation that have wheelchairs and at least some equipment that they have to bring with them. I think bringing their equipment and their wheelchairs should be an accommodation. So we should be planning for that and making sure that we have the kind of transportation that we need for our local populations to be able to accommodate for wheelchairs and the equipment that people might need to bring.
I saw in the question and answer about what some of us have in our emergency bags. And of course, it is very dependent on your specific needs, but some things that we really stress to double check is make sure you have your ambu bag and the proper connections if you're using a trach. Obviously, people tend to just hang that on the chair and think, I don't need to make sure it's still working well, there's no holes or whatever, to make sure. And I like to have 2 ambu bags because I'm a little bit of a freak. But the ambu bags are a big deal. We obviously the clothes, change of under, that type of thing. We do probably overkill on our bug spray and bug wipes because, the mosquitoes, we just can't win. So we make sure that we have obviously your normal things, your medication, your clothes, the ambu bags, your respiratory equipment, your backup equipment, food, if you're tube fed, to make sure that you have your formula and a way to keep it, keep the integrity of it. You don't want to have formula that's gotten really hot and then really cold again. You got to really sort of maintain that. And water, people really will forget to have just regular water because you're doing so many other things. And it's a little embarrassing when you get to that part and realize you don't have it. Even before COVID, part of our bag was masks, simply because you're out and about and the best way to stay healthy is to avoid getting sick. So we always had bags, masks, especially for people who wanted to come up and get a little too close at times. So we've always had masks and wipes, a lot of good wipes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so much for your great responses to these questions. I just want to let everyone know that I put a link in the chat to our MDAC info and resource page, which try to keep up with a lot of the information, try to put those resources and link the resources to the tools that were discussed. We do once a month lunch and learn, so join us at lunch for just some really great information, little small bites of information and resources. If you would like to, I'm gonna stop my share now. It's so much easier not to be sharing a screen. But if you would like to be involved in MDAC, if you really just love Karen and Jessica and Liz and me and just want to be around us more, get involved with MDAC. And again, that's the Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition. And we just really, it's a coalition. It's not anyone paid to do a specific job, but just people who are passionate and have some lived experience and want to contribute to improving our preparation and response and recovery for people with disabilities in the unfortunately many disasters that we face in Louisiana. I'm
I'd be
really,
happy to share actual examples of go bags that folks in my community use that have given me, if I have a chance to go through them and just take out whatever they don't want you, of the stuff that they need. Because I mean, honestly, to me, the best educators are people living with this. I mean, that's everything I know about this disease. I've learned from the people living with it, everything of value. How to just
that
get
sounds
by
like
every
a
day.
great lunch and learn, Liz, just to sit
Yeah.
there and have a video of people, people on Zoom showing what they have in there.
I'm telling you, they're like ninjas. Some of the stuff that people do,
Oh.
I'm like, I can't.
We
What?
go hard.
What's
And
going on? Yeah, it's
I
very
had to
impressive.
laugh
Mhm.
at you, Liz, because I'm an oxygen hoarder. So I had like 10 oxygen tanks in my car at one time and got fussed at numerous times for it, but I still did it.
Aren't you afraid of accidents? Because that's my thing with the gas. I'm always afraid I'm going to blow somebody up when I'm bringing gas jugs around. I'm like, it's going to be terrible. I have no business touching this stuff. Yeah, no, I really like those power stations, which I'm gonna be sharing too, because it's better for net people like me, and you can bring them in your car to go. So if you end up at a shelter or somewhere else, you still have power, a backup emergency source. And I really
And
like
we have
it.
just a couple questions. Christy asked, how do we find the contact for our EOC coordinator for our parish? That's, I normally Google, it's on the GoStep website, your parish EOC coordinator, and I think that'll take you straight to it, Christy. If I had more time, I would have put the link here, but we'll put that link on that MDAC document. And then we have a question. Let's see, I can't make out what that question is. Basically, we have something from Melanie saying Lake Charles suffered 5 disasters back and forth during a pandemic, and all the water systems in our parish was down. So water is a great need for prep. Christy said that, people have to consider the financial implications in regards to getting a hotel room. You have to be 21. They'll put a hold on your debit or credit card. So you might not have access to your resources in the bank because you have a hold on your money. So all of those are just exacerbates the problems.
It really does. And even if you are lucky enough to find a room that is still open, that FEMA is going to reimburse you. I know it's but like food is not accounted for. And this gets really, really expensive for a family that's living on, one disability income. And so having to feed your entire family 3 meals a day for several days is very difficult on that strain. It's I think that even under the best of circumstances, if you're not living with a disability and you have your own vehicle, you have to expect to put out at least $500 or $600 for a family to go to evacuate. And not everybody can do that. It's a serious problem.
I'm going to give all you guys, I know we're over time, but if any of our panelists have some closing thoughts, I want to give y'all just a moment to share that.
No, I'm just extraordinarily excited about the power strip idea. I can't believe I've never even come across that or heard it before. That's the genius thing right there. Yeah.
I always over prepare instead of under prepare. So if you need 5 of something, it's better to have 10 in my book.
I agree. Get some
So-
power
And
strip.
my recommendation would be, I don't know if I'm coming through or not, would be to have more than one way to do or get whatever information you need. Redundancies have more than one possible place to go, more than one possible route, more than one possible way to get your medication, more than one list of what your medications are or access to your healthcare information.
Printing out those lists and putting them in your go bag.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
would like to point out, though, we ran into some problems with IDA because even though under the Stafford Act, you can have an additional prescription written, United Healthcare specifically would not pay for it. People cannot put that extra money out of pocket. You know, so I think that that kind of like a year in advance talking to your provider about writing like a 45 instead of 30-day prescription or whatever, and storing like, you know, a Branch Davidian ends up being the only option for a lot of our families because they can't pay that cost out of pocket for a replacement prescription.
As far as the Medicaid populations, the state issues a requirement that the Healthy Louisiana plans have to issue in the event of a large-scale disaster, 30 days worth of medications for whatever prescriptions you have, unless you have a it's a controlled substance.
Right.
You can run into a problem for controlled substances, but other prescriptions you should be getting 30 days in a large-scale disaster if you're in the expected strike zone of the
And if you
hurricane.
leave home in an
um,
emergency and you left your medication, that's the problem. You know, and they're not covering the cost. Maybe they're supposed to be, but they're not covering it. So when you're on
Well,
the road.
if they have, like I said,
Yeah.
if they have their bottles and they have Medicaid, they need to call their Healthy Louisiana plan. And look, you can ask Jessica, I'm online. I have a emergency page every hurricane season. I'm online answering questions, and I handle all kinds of Medicaid advocacy for that. So if you got anybody that is not getting the medications they're supposed to from Medicaid, then
Yes.
definitely, Liz, you and I can talk.
I would
But
love that
even
to have
with
numbers to call out. Mhm.
Yeah, even with the private companies, the Department of Insurance is the one that oversees the private insurance companies. I say private, the insurance companies doing business in Louisiana. They're overseen by the Department of Insurance, so they usually issue something. Now, there's some ins and outs about what plans are actually considered private, which ones aren't. That's something that, you know, for somebody with private insurance, it might be a little bit more tricky. But for Medicaid populations, I definitely want to know about it if somebody is supposed to get medications and they can't.
That'd be awesome. It'd be wonderful. Yep. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take your phone, right?
Thank you,
Karen's
guys. Go ahead, Jessica.
website is just a huge source for different resources. Her website's fantastic. So if anybody
Thanks,
hasn't
Jessica.
visited, you need to visit.
And that is
Awesome.
linked in our conference program in her bio. So please go to that. Thank all of you guys. All of your websites are linked in our bios, in that bio document, have a lot of resources there. Thank you guys so much. I think takeaway from this is really building community, being prepared and building community for yourself, and reaching out and bringing others in. And it's about us, you know, preparing ourselves and preparing our communities and doing the work. So just really appreciate you guys. And our next session will be starting in about 10 minutes. And I think Alicia is going to come on and make that transition for us. So Alicia, take it away.
Right
Thank you.
back,
Thank
gotta
you,
run.
Bambi, Liz, Jessica.
I will be right back. I need to run take a call from a family. I'll be back.
Okay, and Karen, next session will start at 3:20. And you can remain online. We'll see you in 10 minutes.